Grant Hall joining us on the hotline as usual on a Wednesday morning. Morning, Grant. Hey, just down the street from my house, it literally is just down the street, though the houses by this golf course are considerably larger than the one that I live in. You get the Simmons Bank Championship on the Champions Tour. Little Rock is kind of really on display for golf fans this weekend.
Yeah, it really is, Phil. I'm looking forward to getting down there on Saturday. My older son, Jason, got tickets through Cox Communications here, and we're going to be able to, I think, be up there and not only watch the golf tournament Saturday, but I imagine we'll be able to find a way to watch the football game. I think the window for TV is 2 to 5 p.m. for the golf. So, some of that time Arkansas will still be playing, but it's going to be fun. I counted up out of the 51 players who are there, 10 have won major championships. Ernie Els has won 4. Harrington's won 3. I noticed he was at a function at the Clinton Library yesterday, and they brought in Lee Trevino to play 9 holes, I believe, today, and that's a tremendous get for any golf tournament. So good luck to all the sponsors. I know they've done a tremendous job getting publicity for this thing, and of course spending the money to refurbish the clubhouse. I had 2 uncles that were members of Pleasant Valley and played there. I remember watching John Daly when he played. They had the Southwest Conference Championship there one time in the 80s, and I'll never forget on that 242-yard fifth hole, par 3 fifth hole downhill, John Daly hit one about 7 feet from the hole with about a 5-iron, and Ed Smithson was there, and he looked at me and said, "This boy is not average." So I got a lot of good memories of that golf course.
Well, Matt and I went into the break talking on Arkansas and Mississippi State, and man, it really is as clear as day when you look at Arkansas's losses this year. So much of it, Grant, has to do with turnovers, where those turnovers occur on the field. Arkansas dealing with longer fields than the opponent does offensively. You got to find a way to change that here on the road against a Mississippi State team that, you could look at this 2 ways. They are right now the worst team in the SEC, but it does kind of feel, based on how they've played against Georgia and Mississippi State and even Texas, you could say too, that maybe they're due sooner or later.
Well, I noticed the line was down to 6.5 this morning, and oddsmakers have a way of, getting it right there under a 7-point game and so forth. But Matt, I agree with what you said this week, that this is the biggest game of the year for Arkansas. And the reason I say that is that if you can win this on the road, you can still have a pretty good season, probably go to a bowl game, but if you don't win it, then I think it puts the bowl in serious jeopardy. Because how's the team going to respond if they lose? And I know everybody says Mississippi State's 1-6, but a lot of teams that played their schedule would not be too much better than now. They played Texas, they played Georgia, they played Texas A&M, and they played 2 of those teams within 10 points the last 2 times. So they're getting better, and Arkansas, because of its injuries, is kind of a question mark. And to me, the key is, can Arkansas rush the ball this week with Braylon Russell? Sam made no bones Monday about the fact that that's what they're going to try to do. He's kind of the healthy guy back there, and I hope they run him north and south and just see if they can do that, because, when he ran side to side the few times the other night, it wasn't that good.
I'm with you. 40 rushes, non-quarterback rushes between our running backs. What is one thing? I know it was a bye week, and I know you come into LSU, you're playing at home, and we just haven't been very good on offense at home. What is something that you can take, Grant, from the offensive performance last week and we can build on? Is there anything maybe how Taylor Green played there for about a quarter and a half? I think he was playing really well. Nobody can stop Armstrong, but how are we going to get better? How do we get more points on this offensive unit?
Yeah, I think Haas caught a couple of balls. I think you have to keep going to him. Paskey's back playing now. You've got to just take advantage of the healthy guys. And Taylor Green clearly wasn't 100% because I think he only carried 3 times or something like that. really in the game, and that's a big part of Arkansas's offense. I think is his running ability. So if he can if he's healthier this week, then I think that gives him a better chance. But you're going into a place that they're going to look upon this as their game. I mean, they're going to hey, here's a team we can beat. You know, if we keep playing the way we have been. And I know their quarterback Van Buren is only hitting about 53%, but he's shown an ability to stand in there and deliver and take hard hits, and that does a lot for a football team, as you know, Matt. So I mean, I think it's going to be a really difficult out this week, and if Arkansas can win it, then maybe they can still salvage something this year.
Do you get a little worried about the idea of needing to run it and having a quarterback who still may be a little limited? We'll find out as far as that's concerned based on, you know, how much running he might do Saturday. But with a running back room that, look, I really like Braylon Russell. I think he's a star in the making. I like Dubinion. He hasn't really had to carry the load, you know, too often here. I don't know if Sam has said anything on the teleconference this morning as to whether or not he thinks Jaquindon Jackson has improved in the last couple of days, but it really didn't sound like they think he's available.
Monday,
a couple of weeks, so you know, this is the team's identity. You know, does that worry you about this?
Yeah, Monday he said that Jackson was pretty doubtful for this week. You know, he kept trying. He was in and out. It seemed like he carried one time per quarter and limped off, and they probably need to get him well. But yeah, I mean, when Sam goes and calls Braylon into his office and says, "You're the guy this week," you know, ramp up, and he's making no bones about it. In Mississippi State, you're reading that too. So,
Grant, you remember a game with Houston Nutt when they had this running back named Brandon Holmes, kind of a bigger guy that looks like Braylon Russell. We had a game like that, and they gave him almost 40 carries. Like, it was just one of those games that it was like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get back and establish the line of scrimmage. We're going to be the more physical team. We're going to run it even when you know that we're going to run it, and we're still going to be successful at it.
And there's almost nothing, as you know, Matt, that can fire a team up more than a guy just running over people and becoming a force. And the offensive line feels better, and then the running backs feel better about the offensive line, and it feeds on itself. And you know, you'd like to see one of those 10, 12 play drives where 9 of them are rushes, and they just march down the field, and they don't have penalties and don't turn it over. I mean, that's really been the I think it was 3 first play turnovers last week, wasn't it, in that game? So ended up that the defense was on the field for I think 39 minutes and could not get off the field.
The 4 stops we did to hold them to field goals, I thought that was pretty good. Because it is that kind of bend, don't break defense, and it keeps you in it. It is what we did. What are your thoughts, Grant, on our field goal kicker now after he made that 51-yarder? Do you think, is he our guy for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I like him. You know, both guys had great percentages last year, and, of course, you know, one's hurt now, so Shipley, I think he was 14 out of 15, if I remember correctly. And, of course, he missed the one, but he made the 51-yarder that was big, and it was at a time in the game, and they really needed it. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be the big factor. I think it's going to be more come down to basically, you know, who wins the line of scrimmage and who can keep from making the big errors, turning the ball over.
Grant, Georgia going to lose another game? Is this the best team in the SEC right now? I was going to. The next segment is that's what I was getting into. You know, I just don't expect that. And I almost feel weird saying it in these terms because I don't believe that this is the case a lot. But when I watch Georgia under Kirby Smart, man, I do start to think about this. He won't let them lose another game. Like he is that good of a motivator. The way they played at Texas, Look, I know they get Tennessee again. I think they get Ole Miss too. I don't think Georgia loses again.
Probably so. I mean, I think you're probably right about that. I like LSU. You know, except for that opening egg they laid, they've been pretty good. I like Nussmeier a lot. They really. Sam said they're the best team Arkansas has played. Ole Miss was supposed to be really good. They've lost a couple of times. Alabama's lost twice. So you're probably right. But I think that Kirby had a whole lot of pizzazz going into that Texas game. I mean, they heard from everybody how Texas was going to win, and they did not want them to come into this league and win that game. So they might have a little bit more fire that night than they'll have in some other games. It's funny, you look at the rankings, and I think, doesn't the Big Ten have 3 of the top 4? And whether that's real or whether that'll still be that way at the end of the year, who knows? But do you guys think that the SEC is maybe not quite as good as it thought it was going in?
Well, I think they're kind of beating each other up. I'll take Georgia over any team in the Big Ten, maybe even LSU. You know, I agree with you, Grant, that LSU, that quarterback, and they do fly around on defense. I want to ask you about 2 guys with Arkansas ties, Grant. UNLV, Barry Odom, 6-1. Rhett Lashley with SMU, 6-1. Either one of those teams, who would you give a nod to? Can either one of those teams get into the playoff 12?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would probably maybe even lean more toward UNLV at this point, possibly because of the schedule. I mean, the rest of the year. Does that sound right to you, Matt?
Yeah, they get Boise State. That's another question I guess I got for you. How are you if Genty was to win the Heisman, knowing that he plays in like a Division II type conference, that there's only like 2 real games a year? SMU, they play Pitt. That's their only ranked game in their final 5 games.
You know, Matt, as a Heisman voter still, I start writing down names week by week, and at certain times this year, you had Cam Ward and Blake Horvath, the Navy quarterback, Ryan Williams, the great Alabama receiver, and then they lose games. You know, Milroe's kind of out of it now, I think. Gabriel of Oregon, some people like him. Travis Hunter of Colorado. But, yeah, I mean, the guy you mentioned is definitely worth consideration. It's going to be kind of a tough pick this year, the way it's going now, I think.
I got to talk to you about the World Series here, Grant. I'm a small market team fan, reluctantly, just because of where I grew up. But I actually don't hate this World Series matchup at all. In fact, I love it. 2 longtime franchises, been around forever. This will be the 12th time they match up, and you get the big heavyweights. Look, I love watching guys come out of nowhere and, become a hero for a week, but this is where stars become superstars who then become legends when they do something in the World Series. So we get a chance to see, like Ohtani and Betts again in the World Series, Freddie Freeman, even though he's not 100%, and, the Yankee lineup and everything. It's Gleyber Torres, Aaron Judge, Stanton. They've never played in a World Series. I think it's going to be great.
I think it's fantastic. It's the 2 that I thought would get there. A lot of people don't like either one of them. That's fine. But I grew up in the 50s as a kid watching these teams play on television, kind of wherever you could, or going home for lunch and watching a few innings. I saw a few innings of the Don Larson perfect game, and of course it was the Brooklyn Dodgers back then. It took them forever to finally win one. I think the Yankees are leading them 8-3 in the 11 previous matchups, but the last one was 1981. So. This one, I mean, you talk about star power. I mean, was there anybody that did not think that Soto was going to hit a home run the other night after he was just right on the previous pitch? I know I saw later that Pedro picked, and I did. I'm sitting here at home. He's going to hit the batsman out of the park, and he did. And they've got Judge, and they've got Stanton, who's been great. And the Dodgers, the one thing is, what's the status of Freddie Freeman? Because we know how good Ohtani and Betts are. Does that kind of tilt it a little bit if he's not 100%? And also, really, neither one of these pitching staffs are just overrunning with starting pitchers. They're doing it like everybody else is now, with just kill with bullpen. So maybe you look at the end of this thing, the team that had the most starting pitcher innings pitched wins it.
Be an interesting way to look at it, but then thinking of what the Yankees did to the Cleveland bullpen, and Cleveland's pen might have been the best in the game. Man, they might. Who knows? Dodger bullpen's one of the reasons they are where they are. But those don't fall asleep, right? 7th, 8th, 9th innings, 10th, 11th. I think it's going to be full of drama. Yeah.
By the way, quickly, Phil,
Sure.
I know you got to run, but Fernando Valenzuela, I saw him in the 1985 World Series. When he was young and popular and great, and And is there a guy? Will he make the Hall of Fame someday? I know he's 173 and 153, but for about 6 years, he was as good as there was. As a young kid. He
fell off the ballot. I mean, he fell off the writers' ballot. He'd have to get in on one of the various veterans committees.
Right.
But for a guy whose career ended in '97, there just hasn't been that much of a groundswell of support for him. He is all over the museum. I mean, there's a lot of Fernando Valenzuela artifacts that are in the Cooperstown Museum. He just doesn't have one of those, one of those plaques. I guess I'd be surprised if it does happen. But the Dodgers, I didn't realize this, that they retired his number, and he's the only player in Dodger history to have his number retired, but not be in the Hall of Fame. They made a special exception for him.
And to be Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young winner, I think maybe that's once or twice.
The only one.
Done. So,
no, he's the only one.
Okay. All right, man. See you guys.
All right, I appreciate you, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Grant Hall gives us some of his time every Wednesday.
Basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the games. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, to even political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.